Namaste Galactic family, welcome back to my channel IndigoAngel. My name is Amanda Jane DeMarco, but I go by Indy here on YouTube. And come on into this dimension, guys. I hope that you use the portal on the way in the door, and I hope you were able to clear yourself through the portal as you came on into my house. So be sure to subscribe, hit that notifications bell, and comment and share this video so that way others can find out about my work. And if you don't know much about me, I consider myself to be a planetary global grid reader. I do starseed origin readings. I do all kinds of services for spiritual healing and for expanding consciousness and for upgrading the bioenergetic structures so that way you can be more in tune with your psychic abilities and get on to doing things such as grid scanning, heightened forms of telepathy, remote viewing by location, and really just continuing to expand the mind. And so if you're interested in any of those things, I do have services on my website. You can find me at IndigoAngel222.com. And I have my book here as well, How to Read Celestial Akashic Starseed Origins. So if you've been looking for a methodology on how to determine your own starseed origins and be able to actually do these readings for other people, everything is in my book here. And so you can get this for $22.22 from my publisher. And so if you click on that link, it will take you directly to that site so you can buy that book. And I recommend getting it in a hard copy just because it's a classic and it takes your eyes off of the 5G radiation and EMF infiltration that we are constantly inundated with, that is continuing to weaken the Earth's matrix fields through all kinds of radio and microwave radiation. Therefore, I always love to get hard copies myself, so I recommend doing that. And at my website, you can find some of the past articles that I have written, Lunar Stargate Planetary Locations, Laniakea, the Immeasurable Races from the Supercolossal Cluster, and the Origin of the Feline Race. I do have some Hydra Starseed articles on my website as well that you can go to, and then my services are listed here. I can do the Starseed Origin in-depth reading for you if you would like, unless you would like to dive into the book and do it yourself. I also offer 13-dimensional chakra clearings, J-seal removals, biological and planetary removals, so getting you completely removed from those fallen systems and the crucifixion wounds and implants that are plaguing the collective, okay? And also have Draco seal removals if you are one that has been under some hardcore attacks from the dark forces. Holler at your girl because I can help you get those implants removed. I also do advanced avatar master practices, which is just in-depth interactive work that is highly extensive that could get you the techniques and the skills to be able to do some of these things, as far as remote viewing, grid scanning, gatekeeping, and by location, all of these higher evolved spiritual masteries that one is so often trying to attain as they have fully embodied their soul and as they fully have embodied all of their ascension processes and are looking to go the extra mile into something that might be more grounded in humanitarian work and the evolution of these things. So I teach a lot of that through my advanced avatar master practices session. And yeah, guys, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about that in case you were wondering or looking into possibly doing services with me at some point in time or in the future. Of course, everything is in divine timing, so I love you all whenever you're ready to do that. And thank you so much for being here today. Be sure to keep the watch time up on this video because that is what matters most on YouTube. You guys know how it is. But I want you guys to stay tuned. I do have an amazing grid update for you guys that's bringing some positivity and hope back into some universal perspective here for you guys. I have started to notice that the cracks have been essentially starting to split and the light has begun to kind of filter back in just a bit. I really think over the last few months, we've really collectively, globally, planetarily, societally, culturally, have been in a very dark space where the focus has really been on the negative agendas. I know I've been covering the fallen systems and fallen realms for quite some times, tracing and tracking in my own spiritual way, and have been, trying to shine a lot of light to the origination of a lot of these things, where these things are coming from, how things need to reform from within. And so what I have been noticing is through working quite extensively over the last couple weeks with my Patreon group. And I just want to give a shout out to my patrons. You guys are so amazing. We have some really gifted and talented psychic seers in my private group grid sessions that I do on my Patreon, patreon.com/IndigoAngel. If you would like to be a part of my team of light who goes in and clears the grids, clears the crystal matrices, clears all of the electromagnetic smog and rings of Saturn that are invading the internal structures and the ley line networks of the planet. And we go in and we reestablish sovereignty into the Earth's grids. And this is where I have received this most beautiful and most amazing upgrade in my own biology, in my own grid structures, which is simultaneous and parallel to what is going on in the Earth's grid matrices at this time. So it's beautiful. Shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for being such an amazing team of light that I get to work with, and for bringing forth the revelation of the evolution of where we're going in terms of peace, liberation, and freedom codes. So there have been several new and ancient spiritual dynamics that are rising right now within the Earth, encoding and light matrix and upgrades that are occurring where there wasn't before. So we're really starting to see, like I said, those cracks in the density, the cracks in those sealed off containers, the cracks in the dark black rocks, in the financial system, in the spiritual systems that seem to have closed off for many at this time. I know that's something that I've repeatedly have been hearing from people, is that they feel very disconnected from their guides, very disconnected from source. I myself was feeling that way for quite some time as well. And so it's a good time to get a healing, you guys. If you've been feeling like you need to get a healing or a clearing and it's a little bit outside of you, don't hesitate to reach out to someone that, you know, as a healer, as someone who is a friend, and someone who could just help you shift and move those energies. You don't have to do it all yourself. And it's really amazing when you see people coming together to help each other shift energies, move energies, and heal each other. And that's really what we need right now, is to restore the bond and the hope and the connection of humankind, right? So if you're having trouble, you know, integrating source, and you're having trouble connecting to the higher aspects of yourself and to your oversoul and your higher self and your monadic structures, you know, team up with a being of light that you know, love, and trust to help you get there and overcome the chaos of the world for those who are ready. And I just want to say, I have seen too many mothers crying. I have seen so many people recently over the last month where, you know, it's just, what's going on in the world is just too much to bear, too many tears, too much weeping for the fear of the loss of the children, for the family unit. The family unit has really been attacked and has been, you know, insidiously incepted with these mandates and with all of these forced things that go against our biological sovereignty and our biological will to take ownership over our own bodies and stand in that sovereignty. And so it has been really ripping apart the family unit, which is really hard to see, and it's sad to see. And I've seen mothers crying and weeping over this, crying for the division of their loved ones and for the loss of hope for humanity and its future. And so the diabolical energies on this earth have really went straight to the core of the Divine Mother, because every divine feminine on this earth that holds those universal Divine Mother archetypes, she is a representation of that. And so when she weeps these tears of loss and surrender, this is something that these diabolical forces cannot actually get past on this earth without the Earth Star Mother starting to recognize the wave patterns and forms of that surrender that's taking place within the Divine Mother. And so they can't get past, the diabolical energies ultimately cannot get past each tear of that mother, particularly if those tears are conscious. And so they have been going after the Mother Arc Gates and the aquamarine rays for many, many years on this earth. It's not just that this just started to happen. It just only started to increase with what, kicked off in 2020. And so they've been trying to tear apart our wombs since the time of Lemuria. They have been trying to fracture our root chakra since the time of Lemuria, trying to shake every aspect of its foundation and how it stands, right? Going right for the root, going right for our reproduction, going right for our children. And so what's happening is the universal mother energy's heart can really no longer bear its weight. And this is when the geometric structures of the diabolical forms start to collapse, because this energy sets off and ripples in waves of surrender. And it really has been sweeping through the global heart matrices of the grids. And these voices are being heard, okay? So those that are star seeds, those that are indigo empaths, those that are light workers, those that feel they are a part of the cosmic Christos missions, and I'm talking about the ones liberated from the binding of the crucifixion wounds, unaffiliated to the GF, the GA, and the Ashtar Command, and even the secret space programs, okay? I'm talking about purity of cosmic Christed liberation and transformation. And this is God, sovereign, and freedom. So the GSF is what I'm talking about. The Melchizedek lines, the Merovingian lines, and the Magi Grail lines. And they are all receiving right now an entirely new gridding system inside to function off of the new planetary biological encoding, one that is unbound to suffering, one that does not live according to mandates, death camps, concentration camps, yellow cards, passports, artificial time warps that seem to be sweeping the Earth's grids. And I'm going to show you where those artificial time warps sweep in this update today, so you can be super conscious and super aware of that 30-degree north horizontal ley line in the Earth's fields. And it is going to be unbound also to the transhumanism, which is that post-apocalyptic human era that we are taking back, and we are taking ownership, and we are saying, no, not going to happen, because 2,200 years in the future, we can see the prophecy of the dove grid, okay? And that is the installment of that new gridding template that is within all of us right now who are ready to receive it and live on those futuristic prophetic timelines of nurturing harmony and peace on this earth. And so you can already really begin to see the pushback and the infiltration of this upgrade of light and the energetic sweeps and waves that everyone's receiving. Some ways that you can kind of see that right now is going to be in England, right? So they've recently some of you may have seen the news updates on all of this stuff, but they've recently decided to end all of their mandates, end the face diaper mandates, the yellow badge passes, and all of these things. They're starting to push back in their Willy Wonka. You can see it in the form that Biden's bill was denied to the Supreme Court. And you can see all of the truckers in the Canadian food and distribution mandates that are fighting back as well. We are going to start seeing these major shifts and these major resistance, because it cannot stay, the total planetary consciousness and force cannot stay in one unbalanced polarity much longer. So the narratives on those who have had the JJ elixir is starting to flip its polarity, and new waves of those who have chosen the organic and artificial timelines, right? Because it's going to be waves that happen within both. But also what's so important is it's going to be happening within those who have chosen the artificial timelines. We're going to again start to see a reawakening in those waves. And it's going to be a much deeper awakening, one that they've never really felt before, because the illusion of the entirety of this 2020 global apocalyptic era is starting to kind of have a reckoning of those distruths being dissolved. And so even those that are jibby-jabbed are going to be able to see through the BS on a new level. And so reawakening is just going to continue to take place. This is going to set to heal and upgrade those who are ready to carry that architecture in their bodies, to lay the foundation again for the next cycle. And all of this is the awakening of the dove grid. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my dove grid picture with you guys. Now, the dove grid is something I have spoke about at the end of my last video update that I put out on the World War II grids, right? I was really getting into some heavy stuff with that update, and And I'm not saying that stuff isn't still going on by bringing forth this dove grid, but basically you can find all of the information to some of these pictures that I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you a lot of different references today on where I've pulled this information from, but essentially this one comes from the Yahweh book. Okay, right? The fallen Yahweh systems, right? I get it. I gotcha. I know what you're thinking with that, but we are going to cover the hijacking of this dove grid in this book and why these actually need to be released and liberated and who's actually holding the hijacking. We're going to kind of discuss all of that. But this is the book of knowledge, the keys of Enoch, and you can find the picture of the return of the dove grid in this book, so I highly recommend getting that. I did check on Amazon for the hardcover on that, and it is going for about $200 as we speak, you guys. So not sure why it's so much. It used to only be $50 when I got it maybe about a year ago, and it just went up in price. So I'm not sure why that is, but maybe you can find it at other places, other locations where it won't be so expensive. And but again, I spoke about the dove grid on my last World War II update. And I talked about how this grid held the freedom codes necessary to restore peace and harmony again on the earth. And understanding that it begins with each heart, each person to achieve this internal understanding of one another through the stars of freedom. Okay, the celestial gridding of freedom that ultimately holds itself in the Cygnusian templates that I'm going to talk about in this update. Something that the earth and humanity desperately needs right now, right, guys? This is a grid that has not been fully activated, okay? And this grid lies mostly dormant in North America. It lies dormant in the Earth's fields because of the planetary J-seals. So the J-seals basically are selenite pylon rods that are in anti-clockwise vertical spins that basically anchor down the hijacking of the dove grid into the inner Earth rod that limits these seventh dimensional monadic structures in the Earth's fields, basically mocking the Holy Spirits and disallowing that dove light matrix to fully manifest itself into the total Earth field. Now, the dove grid is an expansion of an organic celestial multi-tiered light matrix grid in the Earth. So it's not just what you see in this picture here. It is much more extensive, and it is representing an awakening of the light that carries the peace, freedom, and liberation codes into the Earth's light matrix. So an expansion of this, a wave of this, a ripple of this that will continue to internalize as one receives those gridding structures to upgrade and fully activate to these templates within. And it's undeniable because the planet and humans share the same composition. So you cannot disconnect these two. As this expands through the Earth's fields and as each one attains this gridding structure within, it will virtually be one, and it will continue to ripple and restore the balance of humanity. Now, this is going to take place slowly, okay, over from the periods of now into the next 200 years, into 2200. Okay, and so it's going to take time. The dove grid in itself, like I said, it consists of many networks. It's not just this picture, what you see here. This is just one reference I have for it, but this is a multi-tiered functioning network that higher levels of star intelligence will activate higher evolution. And so this is going to come through actually the crystal caverns, locations where amethyst, selenite, and quartz and obsidian caverns down in the Yucatan, where the Yucatan is ultimately the head of that dove grid. The caverns will activate here. There will be an extra light matrix and ripples of waves of that light that will actually enter in through those cavern systems that are going to assist with expanding that dove grid globally. We also have the inner earth light cities of the seraphim. Those are continuing and slowly starting to reawaken themselves within, as that comes more through the restoration of the Sophianic codes in the earth that are anchored through the inner earth gate sites in the Agartha portals, essentially. And also this is going to come through the crystal ley line networks that will activate, that run to the 24 crystal pointed stargates. This all coming through Lemurian encoding, because remember, I've retraced this back. You may have seen the last Lemurian video I did not too long ago. I think I put it out 2 months ago, but I really talked about how we need to restore the Lemurian templates. Well, these crystal ley line networks will activate and run through those 24 crystal pointed stargates. This runs through the highest Earth peaks on the Earth, and it touches the heavens, down through all of the gas lines and crystal ley lines, and down through the deep canyons and fault lines to the volcano gods that basically will ripple this Lemurian matrices to come forward. And this is what will continue to be initiated into the future prophecy as these Lemurian lands rise. Okay. The dove grid also expands into the Stargate system. So the universal systems, the 12 Stargate universal systems, the crystal Stargates, and also the occult systems that are running as well, which we forget about. Many, many celestial occult systems here are also continuing and contributing to the peace and harmony templates on this earth, particularly through the hydra and cygnusian templates. Okay. This is also going to continue to ripple through the Mother Arc sites, the 13-dimensional encoded vortexes and sacred sites. All of this will begin and continue to shift and upgrade through that dove grid expansion. It's also going to shift locations as we get closer and closer to the future prophecy of the return of Lemuria and the rising land formations that will come back to this earth in the next 200 years. The dove grid also expands into the golden light cities on the reformed future Terra, okay, which is the new planetary grid that I'm talking about. And there will be 3 sets of 17 locations called golden cities. The golden cities will be like vortexes or spinning chakras. And each of these 3 sets of 17 vortexes unite to form a matrix totaling 51 golden city vortexes as per seen on the Freedom Star map. So that's another thing I want to show you guys about. So this is a book that I recently have got called The Freedom Star. This did come from my Discord. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody on Discord for constantly throwing amazing new intel into that chat site. So if you would like to join my Discord, please check out the description. I will have links to my Discord. There's so many amazing, beautiful, smart, intellectual, intellist people that are on that next wave of ascended energy, throwing up information in there. So it's a good place to come and check out the chats and participate in my community. But I just want to thank all of you for guiding me to Adaile Toye's work. I will be highlighting this work probably for some time now, just because she's the one who really speaks of this future prophecy, and it's amazing, you guys. You can get all of this at IamAmerica.com. I'll leave links down in the description, but essentially she talks about the Freedom Star and the Freedom Star map. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and share that map with you guys really quick. Now, you're not going to be able to get a super good picture of this, so if you want to really dive into this map, I highly recommend going and ordering yourself a map. Like I said, IamAmerica.com, and this is where basically all of the 51 Golden City vortexes are highlighted on this map. So this will be considered the new galactic web in the year 2200, representing the expansion and the full liberation of those peace freedom codes from the dove grid. All of this will be ultimately expanding itself from the salts and the crystal seas in the north polar regions. Okay, so I'm going to talk more about this map essentially, but I want to actually dive into the history of the dove grid with you guys, as I do feel that this is very fundamental and important to understanding the totality of the functioning of the dove grid in the first place, and why it is so important to bringing back this Lemurian encoding. Okay, guys, so the ancient land of the dove grid was originally held in Australia prior to the hijacking. So, like I told you before, you can find 2 of the original dove grids in the J.J. Hurtak book, the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch. This being one of the systems that have hijacked the dove grid. This was through the Yahweh systems under the Father principle, okay? Let me be clear. The dove principle does not belong to any human principle whatsoever. This is ultimately an organic celestial light matrice. You can see the hijacking of the dove held in the USA under the J-Seal pylon networks. You can see that in just basically the last slide that I had put up of the picture of the dove expanded over the North Americas. But you can actually look a lot deeper and a lot further into the hijacking of these templates through the Jehovian grids is what it's actually called. You can find that through Lisa Renee's work at ascensionglossary.com, energeticsynthesis.com, and you can also find it in the Voyagers book as well. I do believe Voyagers 2, page 366. And they talk about how many different systems have basically hijacked this expansion of this dove. Okay, this picture I have here of the ancient land of the dove and its origination. This one comes from the J.J. Hurtak book on page 620. It's essentially in the back of the book. But the dove was always encoded energetically and originally to the motherlands of Mu. This goes back further than Lemuria to the great continent of Mu that existed in the Pacific, which is where ultimately my energetic imprint comes from. And it comes through the hydra and swan and cygnusian templates. And why this was all established prior to any hijacking of any father principle, okay, of any Metatronic system. This was prior to any even the great hijacking of the Galactic Federation that we're also going to get into. But essentially, the Cygnus is the template that holds the dove. And so the Cygnus holds the template of the dove grid, and it holds the oldest indigo records on the earth, going all the way back to indigo Neanderthal. So the dove was brought forth even before this time. Okay, it's always been in the purity of the nanodiamonds of the Milky Way. This is where the Cygnusian templates are held. And the dove breaks down and manifests as its smaller counterpart, as the swan. Okay, so the swan is a form of its protection, really. As that dove begins to expand, it can take the form of a swan as well. The swan is a matriarchal energy, a Sophia energy. It's also underlying in the undercurrents and the lower second dimensional spheres. It's a hydra current as well. Cygnus and hydra are in opposition to one another in the cosmology. And so you can find examples of this in the James Churchward's work in the book, The Symbols of Mu, and some of the other books he's written about the motherlands of Mu, the cosmic motherlands of Mu. And so all of this energy is a transformational process, is a transformational period. The swan truly is the forefront of that, because it is it's the fighter spirit of the matriarchal energy that basically comes to bring forth liberation. If you look at the qualities of the swan, it is very brave. You don't want to mess with a swan. A swan will basically kick your butt if you are a threat. Okay, but it still anchors in the beauty, the grace, and the peace and the inspiration of those codes that the dove is allowed to fulfill and be fruitful through, with the swan actually protecting the outer encasing of that. It comes through the original creation templates of the cosmic Christos and Sophia energy in the ultra spectrum light. It's liberated of any and all hijacking. So you know why Lemuria feels so good when you regress in these records, right? Do you know how many regressions I've done with people where we go back into the Lemurian timeline? Okay. The majority of people feel very anchored here. They feel purity here. They feel love and light here. They feel that this represents something that they can hold on to that was before the fall of man. And there's a reason for that. It's because the dove, okay, and the freedom and peace codes has been carried from this timeline. So this is not something that belongs to the Yahweh systems. This is not something that belongs to the Galactic Federation. This is not something that belongs to the Metatronic systems. The dove hijacking happened at the time of Lemuria, and that is what this ancient land of the dove picture here in Australia represents. I really do feel this has something to do with the nuclear warfare that took place in Australia that blew up Uluru Rock, okay, why the entire, centipedal point of Australia is non-livable and looks like it's just been blasted with radiation. Well, there's a reason for that. I do not feel that this was from natural occurrences, as Uluru Rock was once an ancient grandmother tree that carried all the crystal seed templating to the perfected 24 chromosome Pleiadian human and still contains this in its root networks underground. Okay, if you want to connect to the purity of your ancient Lemurian roots, all you need to do is take your energy underneath the Luru's rock, because there are all the crystal seeds waiting for you to basically embody that energy. But there was a lot of zones of destruction at this time, and primarily down in the south east corner of Australia, where the majority of their population resides. These were the zones of destruction at this time, and this is where a lot of their migrations had taken place in Australia and from ancient Lemuria. But all of this, the original Dark Brotherhood takeover, was here. Okay, this is where it was. If we want to know where things really fell, it was here in Australia. Okay, this is where the hybridization traumas originated, through forced breeding, sterilization, tearing apart of the fifth dimensional souls, where twin flames were split apart, where the 144,000 were displaced, and raping and mass cleansing of the matriarchal tribal natives, the descendants of Mu. Okay, the demonization of the serpent cults plagued the earth here, where they originally hijacked the original ancient land of the dove. Okay, all of this being done by who and what? Who are we going to point the finger at? Who did it, right? Okay, this comes from the Nephilim. This comes from the Anu Draco. This comes from the Anunnaki Draco Leviathan hybrids. Okay, the Anunnaki that you're thinking of right now, those are parasites on this earth. The true energy of this, the true light source energy of this, comes from the planet of Nibiru, and it is something that is totally different than what we label it to be here in humankind. Okay, this comes from the squids, and this comes from the Cthulhu cults. Okay, and the demonization of those hydra templates that I've talked about many, many times on my channel. This was a time where a lot of abductions took place, stealing of bodies, that we continue to see the technologies ever evolving in this, in artificial intelligence into this time. Stealing of bodies and cloning took place at this time. Why do you think right in the center of Australia is in Area 52? This is the master center of cloning that has been there since the time of Lemuria. Okay, it's just changed, transitioned. It's always been there. Okay, they did it right at the heart, where they took and they demonized and they transformed and they nuked the lands of Australia. Okay, and more torturing of hybrid children. Okay, implanting the hybrid traumas, generation after generation after generation. This has left great scars in the etheric templates of the Divine Mother, with deep, deep hooks and wounds that distort the ninth dimensional monadic structures of our shared earth experience here. You have no idea how many times I've seen these great scars in the etheric bodies of many, many Divine Mothers that come forward and show me these scars, and how they are so creatorial, and they are so ulceric, like they're like ulcers in the etheric body. They're very, very hard to heal. Okay, and there's a reason why they can't heal. It's because we are not able to go to the root chakra, where ultimately they originally ripped us apart from this place. When the dove grid fell, this was at the fall of the Sophia, when the Yaldabaoth was born, right? The jealous god. There was a great spiritual war that also took place, hijacking the identities of the seraphim. Okay? This hijacking has been extremely extensive and does continue to go and roll off of the dove celestial template that is being healed. But all is forgiven here, okay? The dove seeks to restore, rehabilitate, go through complete and total biological and planetary bioregenesis, which was technically, that hijacking of the seraphim identity was technically the most grandest deception that ever took place in mankind at all. They knew if they could completely hijack the seraphim, they could hijack the dove and eradicate peace on the earth. The dove grid was hijacked by the Galactic Federation. What they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that they're holding the hijacking to this template, because they enjoy the power that they have too much. Let me tell you, they hold the pins to this because they have incepted the crucifixion wounds and have promoted this, and still do to this day, all over YouTube. Okay, it's insidious and incestuous, and it is taking over the minds of those who have expanded into the celestial realms of ascension. And it's not fair, and it's sad, and I weep and cry for this, but I know that people will overcome, because they're only time capsules that they can ultimately hold you in until your own God's sovereignty begins to take that over. They have continued to push the AI agenda through propaganda, through med beds, okay? 7 different kinds of med beds, all designed to heal your holographic template through light and sound, right? But they do not tell you, what they do tell you is that this is the future of humanity, okay? But they fail to mention the biometric scanning that has been installed in this technology, and that this really tunes us right back into full circle, back into the singularity vortexes of AI, and takes us back into more censorship, more privacy loss, and more loss of the sovereignty over your own biological form. Okay, so they are pushing this, and they are pulling on the integrity of the dove, saying it is and it isn't, playing mind tricks of no transparency of this technology whatsoever. It's very frustrating to watch for me personally, because I can see through it. Also, how you can tell this also is the artificial time warps that are taking place, okay? This was placed on the Earth's 3rd and 4th dimensional field. People forget that the galactic web was supposed to be a peaceful coexistence, a peaceful coalition with ultra frequency. Okay, with ultra-terrestrials, with extraterrestrials. No, the extraterrestrials are not coming to save us. They cannot interfere, because the level of fear that exists in this Earth grids, these Earth matrices, they are not in any way contracted to come here and actually save humanity. They want humanity to know that the power is in our hands, okay? And we have to be guided in the expansion of the dove, guided in the expansion of the ultralight and the intelligence that comes forward to give us this grace and inspiration, okay? It is the human hybrid traumas that have enslaved its meaning through the GF, and also have incepted this into human dramas and into cosmic history. So they've taken the hybrid traumas and they have incepted the human dramas of this into cosmic history for this to play out and repeat, and for us to continue to manifest this through our collective shared gnosis of this celestial cosmic human drama warfare. An example of this is the Orion Fallen, okay, the negative agendas in Orion. It comes through the Orion systems in the 3rd and 4th dimensional artificial time warps, okay? But in natural galactic synchronization of time, Orion will actually assist with opening chambers of the Earth to provide a shifting of this dove consciousness to the Americas for the dove grid awakening. So I'm going to show you another picture really quick to kind of highlight an example of this that comes from our hijacked systems. Hang on just a second. Okay, so in this book, you can see here that there's these little dark triangles that kind of go across all of the 30-degree north horizontal ley line that, you know, go right across all of the major vortex points, or most of the planetary stargate points of the universal stargates, okay? This is where they hold the 3rd and 4th dimensional artificial time warps that really anchor and feed into the fallen dragon grid. If you go back to some of my previous updates, I talked about that fallen dragon grid and how the siphoning from the head to the tail of the dragon are keeping human blood and silver blood flowing through the artificial time matrices, okay? This is what we are expanding out of, into a natural galactic synchronization of time. And Orion will actually be the pure source light energy of Orion will assist with the opening chamber of the Earth to provide that shifting of this dove consciousness to the Americas for the dove grid awakening. Now, the purpose of this message today, you guys, is to liberate the dove grid from the Americas, liberate and release the hijacking to allow peace and freedom codes to expand across the globe at a time when it is so desperately needed, and where I have actually came into the realization that the grid structure has completely redefined my entire codex within. And so I know if it's going on within me and within the light group of people that I work with, that it's going to be happening and sweeping globally across the grids. The dove has also been hijacked, like I said, by the Metatronic systems, which are ultimately the metaverse. Okay, these artificial time warps of the metaverse that are coming through the grids. Okay, these are the Metatronic systems. These are the AI networks, the Fallen Dragon grid running the AI Singularity headquarters, working together with the GF, the GA, the Ashtar Command, and the secret space programs that also work within all of this. They have launched these new campaigns of super soldiers quoting that they will rehabilitate you from my labs. All of this is false propaganda, guys. I cannot tell you enough And I'm sorry to be so abrupt with the information, but it just is what it is. And those of you who are standing in true, prosperous sovereignty will be able to see this. Why this is a hijacking, because anything that is considered an organic matrix like the dove grid, which is truly what this is a sovereign grid, does not technically belong to any submission of human facets of federations. It does not belong to any submission of gods, jealous gods, controlling gods. It is for all people and all earth lands. And those installing the notions under this surgency to specific overlords, technically they are doing it to mock the Holy Spirits and to kill the peace and to gain power. That is why this is hijacked, okay? So the dove grid is going to come in awakening in steps, you guys. It's not just going to be one thing. There are going to be a lot of things that are happening with this, and I'm going to tell you what those are. So this dove grid expansion, this will be done in a light order that justifies the presentation of the expanding dove. So this is something we did see through group work in group seeing that the manifestation of this came forward. So the heart and the dormancy in North America to expand into the world according to the unfolding prophecy will be when great geological upheaval shifts take place. Okay, so this is going to have a lot to do with the shifting of the poles that I will talk about in this update. This is what's going to continue to completely alter the earth to be representative of the new lands of the new world and into the birth of the seventh root race from the swaddling lands in Brazil. And so that's kind of where the seventh root race is going to come forward, is in the lands of Brazil. It's called the swaddling cloth. A lot of transformation is going to take place on earth post these processes that I'm going to share with you now. But first, what will happen is the dove may expand through the white lion grid, because the white lion is its protector. Okay, it as well as the swan. Okay, it's multi-transformations within this expansion, but it's going to come through the white lion as its protector. It can flourish through this network, and it finds its way into places of deep darkness through the white lion, into the places of detriment, despair, prophesized pain, and suffering by having the beast of cosmic Reshik as its shield. Okay, again, unaffiliated to the crucifixion implants. Okay, this is post-liberation. Or the core energy of this, I mean, is it's unaffiliated to those crucifixion wounds, okay? But there will be a post-crucifixion liberation that will take place collectively for humanity going into the future. So this will come as a rising of the protectors of the Divine Mother and the Sophianic Grail. So you can see this through a great rising of the King Arthur templates. You'll also see this through a grand stand of masculine embodied in power, relieving themselves of the plague that's on the 10th vagus nerve, because for most divine masculines who carry the King Arthur templates in the white dragon lineages, they are suffering very, very deeply from draconic seals. That is not talked about, but it's plaguing the 10th vagus nerve and causing a lot of issues with digestion of food, also brain activity, memory, just the ability to overall function in the nervous system. And so we're going to see a lot of great miraculous healing come through with this, and the purity rays of the divine masculine, those will be heavily upgraded. Now, the next awakening within the dove grid that will take place will come with the code of the guardianships that are coming forward. So many will kind of re-embody themselves as the guardians. Either that awakening will come through very much a spiritual or celestial activation within, but will come through seraphim, even the Elohim, the cherubim, the thrones, but it will definitely come through a guided spiritual transformation of guardianship that will encode them to understand that they are one with the guardianships. And it will be those who are ready to step up into parental roles of the earth, those who are ready to parent the earth, those that are ready to be in supporter roles of the earth, and those that hold the sustainability of this within them. And these guardians, okay, these guardians have come and will come to eliminate the clones of the earth. This was one of the first cracks in creation, was the cloning. And then it transpired and continued to transform into transgenderism. being the next cracks in creation and the spawns of the underworld that are being born from the artificial wounds. So a lot of this will be rectified, rehealed, and cleared and reformed. Transhumanism being the third crack in creation. And the guardians will come to move on to heal the hybridization traumas, okay? And they do this simply by just healing this within themselves. That's all that they're next necessarily going to do. So once guardianship activation takes place and those global sweeps of transformation come through, it will be a great clearing of 144,000. This will clear those hybridization traumas exist within the Anu hybrids, the Draco Anunnaki hybrids, the Nephilim hybrids, the Zeta hybrid traumas, healing all of the alien hybrid traumas, period, across the board. Okay, and the next process of the Dove Grid activation will be on particular sites. Okay, this will be where demonic encoding begins to be stripped and released from the symbolism. So we'll see this happening in this restoration and rehabilitation taking place in locations like the Statue of Liberty, the Liberty Bell, restoration of the purity of sacred sites, and Lemurian templating will begin to further activate and run through the grid networks there as well to restore those energies. Then the next thing that happens with the Dove expansion is that the global decoding of the selenite rods that keep the pylon network of the planetary J seals holding the fabrics of the Dove contained to North America to allow it to expand out beyond. Okay, and it was so beautiful in our group grid session. We see hundreds of doves being released at particular sacred locations, one being down in Easter Islands, hundreds of doves being released in the Yucatan at the head of the dove, and then also in Niagara Falls seemed to be another location that the doves were being released. And so basically what will happen is there will be a decoding of those selenite rods that keep that pylon network and the planetary J seals, a restoration of the seventh dimensional monadic structure in the earth that holds the fabrics and of the dove contained to North America, and the hijacking and siphoning will be released. This is very important because this is the collective pinnacle point of total release of global crucifixion wounds, completely restoring the seventh dimensional planetary monadic structures. This, though, is a process that takes time over generational evolution. So no, this is not something we're going to see tomorrow. This is not something we're going to see in a year, 2 years, 3 years. This is going to take a couple hundred years. This will come through great generational waves as we go fully into the sixth root race, the sixth sun, and the seventh root race down into the cloth of the swaddling that will take place down in Brazil. Now, within the spheres of the dove, so you can see in the picture here, all of these spheres. Let me see if I can pull it a little bit so you can see it more. Okay, this will work. You can't see it super good, but like I said, I think you can find this on page 49 in the book of Enoch. But essentially within the spheres of the dove, what will happen is cities of light will come online through the heart of the Nephites. The Nephites were considered the ancient Americans, okay? And so again, it's going to come through tribal Lemurian encoding. And what these cities of light will actually be called is stations of light command. Now, on a higher parallel level, these ultimately are coming from the future, and they are drawing energy to collectively build these from what are considered the crystal seas that are going to happen as this North Polar shift begins to continue to manifest. The crystal seas will be locked primarily in the polar regions in the future Earth in 2200. The locations in the United States that will begin to experience the first waves of these etheric light cities are going to be Arizona and New Mexico. This is going to be Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky. This is going to be Georgia, South Carolina, Montana, Idaho, and Washington, Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas. And this is all going to come through creation rays. And again, you can find a lot of this information in this Freedom Star book where it covers the locations of these light cities, but how this ultimately is one of those multi-level tiered processes within the return of the dove expansion itself out of the North Americas as those planetary J seals are released. Okay, so I think I'll show you just a picture on my Scribbles map where I essentially just charted the J seals, so you can see where that release of those seals will need to actually take place in the Earth's grids. This is something I do practice a lot with those of you who've done J seal removals with me. They are amazing planetary healings, essentially, and we are shifting these and removing these one by one. Now you guys can see here on my map, all of the J seals are located on the 70° west. Now this you can find in the Voyagers too. The actual latitude and longitude of the location of these seals. I used to have a giant dove on here being held down by the J seals, but I removed the dove because my drawing wasn't, that amazing, but that's okay. But essentially, this is where those selenite rods are holding these vortexual systems in place. That was done by the parasites of the Jehovian facets, essentially. But this is where it will need to be dissolved for that dove to feel that freedom and liberation and that expansion. So this is what we're removing technically every time we're doing a J-seal removal. We are removing the crucifixion implants. We are removing the hijacking of the Metatronic systems. I may even go so far as to now and continue in the future to continue to remove the hijacking from the Galactic Federation as I go forward as well, because there's many extensive levels to the hijacking of this system that they're wanting to draw off of and continue to, hold planetary power because of this hijacking. But essentially what I want to talk to you guys about is we're going to go back to the Freedom Star map because this is the future prophecy of the dove. Okay, so we're going to get into the future prophecy. Essentially, this is going to be, like I said, it's going to be a generational process that takes from the present until the year 2200, the shifts that will begin to happen through the dove expansion, the future prophecy of creating the new earth and the freedom star of the dove grid. And I hate to say it, guys, everyone says we are in the golden age. No, we're not. Actually, we're still clearing from the silver age. Okay, you can see it through the technocracy, the medical technocracy. You can see it through the silver blood that's running from the head and the tail of the dragon. You can see it through technology and silver cars and all of these things. The Federal Reserve right now, everything is kind of all about silver, buying silver, needing silver. Well, it's because we're in the silver age and we're still clearing the distortions, the hybridization traumas that are being cleared through the silver age. The golden age has yet to fully actually take root. The golden age will take root as polar shift region will become more directly over North America. And so this will change in our earth rod and the central vertical locations of the dragon ley lines, making new equatorial codes for total global transformation possible. What will happen is there will be excess water of the equator that will cause an imbalance in the rotation of the planet. As rising oceans cover lands, the unbalanced weight causes other lands to sink, and the proportion of the land to ocean water starts the shifting of the poles, which move at the North Pole in a 90-degree angle. The final resting place of the North Pole in year 2200 will be near the south end of Baffin Islands, Canada, only 2,000 kilometers from New York City. I do believe I actually have a picture of this. Yes, I do. Let me show it to you guys. So you can see as shifts begin to take place, shift 1, shift 2, shift 3, ultimately it's going to be down here by the Baffin Islands and Canada, like I said, only 2,000 kilometers from New York City. And you can find this diagram in the Freedom Star as well. So let me just go back to that map. So this is the future prophecy. Essentially, Easter Islands will expand and become New Lemuria. So you can see down in the corner here how I know you can't see this map super good, but it's the best picture that I could find as of now. But you can kind of see in the corner here, Easter Islands, all of this is land that's going to actually come up and become the New Lemuria. I'm sorry. No, this is New Zealand that I'm pointing to. So it's the same. So New Zealand Easter Islands, and then also Hawaii. All of this land is going to basically begin to emerge. Okay, this is like the sunken parts and aspects of the original motherlands of Mu, where this is going to come back. So Lemuria is coming back, and the first sighting of the new Lemurian lands will be at the Hawaiian Islands, where the land will continue to expand out from the ocean. So new larger islands will expand also next to South America. You can see this little expansion of land here. This will be called the White Dove Islands. And then more islands will come up next to the west side of North America. These will be called the Diamond Islands. The oceans will then start to collapse in and come into California, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Arizona. These will all be completely underwater and will be called the Bay of Harmony. And then 10 years into this newly reformed Earth, the prophecy is that the seventh root race will begin to appear out of what will be called the swaddling cloth in South America, the majority of Brazil. These are the children who will carry the new galactic web within them. And if we do our job now, expanding these matrix systems and this information and this light to every part of the world and every part of the globe, these hybridization traumas should not extend onto the seventh root race. So they will not carry these extensions of these traumas within them, but they will carry the extensions of us within them, the purity of us within them. There will also be new lands that rise down by Antarctica. You can kind of see new lands starting to come up here. And when I'm talking about these crystal seas and the formations of these light matrix cities that expand all over the globe, they're going to come from the crystal seas of the polar regions once we have that pole shift take place. So every coastal line globally will be undergoing deep changes. Everything's going to reduce, and a lot of the coastal regions will be underwater. There will also continue to be cities of lights, islands of lights, inner earth cities of lights. So the prophecy of this is true, guys. And I know many of you have heard this, but this is really actually coming year 2200. And it's just so interesting that all of this information kind of came for me to kind of put this whole picture together now in the year 2022, because it's kind of birthing itself into the collective consciousness as we speak, as more people become aware of what the transformation process of humanity will come to be. And also you can see down here, like in the tropical areas where it once were, there will be new mountain ranges that will appear as well. There will be an entirely new mountain range formed from the Virgin Islands to Cuba. So a lot is going to happen. A lot is going to take place. I felt that this message was just necessary, considering I've been working so much with those on my Patreon group. So again, shout out to you guys for us all working together to bring forth a lot of this information. And if anyone wants to join my Patreon, you can find me again at patreon.com/IndigoAngel, and you can come on over and join me here. I'll just show you guys my Patreon. Essentially, this is where I host the group grid sessions that anyone can join. You can just join my lowest tier. We've been doing it for quite a while now at the lowest tier, which is $11.11 a month, or you can upgrade to my $44 a month tier, where we do one-on-one individual sessions where we can work together. And but you can join those group grid sessions at the lowest tier, and I would love to have you there. I'd love to see you and have you join our group of just continuing to liberate and release the freedom codes. I can't say that we'll be working on the peace and freedom codes next time we get together for sure, as that's all going to continue to transpire as global transformation continues to take place. But again, I felt that this message was necessary and needed today. There's so much darkness, and I really wanted to assist people with a new picture or an idea of where the world is going to go, and assist everyone else with, for those who are ready, those who are the indigos, those who are the record keepers, those who are type 1, type 2, those who are the Melchizedek, the Merovingians, the Magi Grail lines. You will be receiving the new encoding brain, inside your biology to expand with the dove matrix. Okay, you will not be left behind in this transformation. Only those who are choosing to be left behind in this transformation. Okay, those who are choosing the artificial time warps and the artificial timelines. Okay, those who are aligning themselves, even on a level of celestial intelligence, to the Galactic Federation, that are encouraging the propagation of this artificial technology to completely take over the sweeping waves of this globally. And so those will be the ones that will be stuck on the old earth templates. Those who are aligned to the new earth gridding will be assisted and ushered into the new world. And so that's just how it will work, because you will be aligned to the frequency of that. Multiple earths are simultaneously existing. And I'm not saying that the destruction codes of earth into the 1D, 2D, 3D polar splits of those earth fields aren't going to continue to play out in these future timelines. That I cannot say with any certainty whatsoever. I just know that if you are aligned and you've already embodied the grid network to the new earth, that you will be on the new earth. Okay, guys, so yes, I love you all so much, and I hope everyone is having a beautiful and blessed everything, and namaste, and I will see you guys on the next video.